for a couple of minutes what's been going on and the work that he's been doing. This is important stuff. I know most of you will be having heard and getting updates and reports, but maybe some of you haven't. And so, Philip, it'll be really good to hear from you just what's been going on, and not only what Philip has been doing, but what you can all continue to do to support the work that Philip's doing as well. Thanks, Philip.
Thanks, I'm going to be talking now just for a short time about the hate speech bill, which is something which is a very real threat to religious freedom and also to other forms of freedom such as political freedom. And we have a deadline for the 22nd of May that we need to put in submissions. And I would like to ask you to help educate your listeners so that they can be equipped to put in those submissions by the 22nd of May. We've got a very serious threat with this bill, although there are other laws in this country which regulate speech to a certain extent. They are all civil laws, which means that the person could be sued and they could be forced to pay damages, but they would not go to jail. Now, with this new law, there's a penalty of up to 8 years in jail, okay, which is a long time. And secondly, it claims, it's got a very misleading title, which is the hate speech bill, and it does criminalize hate speech, but it defines hate speech so broadly that it would include what it would call social harm, which it doesn't properly explain what that is. Now, that means that a magistrate who might decide that your opinion is socially harmful because maybe it's controversial and other people are offended by it, could then decide to put you in jail for that up to 8 years. And that has a risk of creating not just harm on those individuals that go to jail, but a chilling effect on everybody else. So we can have a situation like China or Saudi Arabia or Russia, where you cannot just air your views as you would wish to do, which is then harmful to the gospel and harmful to the rest of society because we don't have proper debate. So while we have that opportunity and the doors are still open, we want to try and get people to put in submissions by the 22nd of May. Now, on the positive side, by lobbying political parties, which we've been lobbying all of them, we've got support from many of them, and the government has narrowed the list of grounds on which a person can accuse of hate speech. They have also removed the very vague concept that they called cultural harm, that nobody quite knows what that is. So somebody says you're harming my culture, so you must go to jail. And slightly narrowed the definition of hate, and also required that any regulations would need to go to Parliament. So we've had some small wins, okay, but I've got a list of another 20 small changes to this bill which would greatly narrow the risk of innocent people going to jail. Now, we would preferably like to scrap this bill altogether because we don't need it. There are already other laws which would stop, for example, incitement of violence and penalize that. But here this is a risk to people who think they want to kind of make a more perfect society, but at the same time they can be harming innocent people. So just in terms of, it's not just Christians who are speaking up, but there's a coalition of civil society organizations, religious organizations, other religions as well, and academics that are already speaking up and saying, no, this is not a good idea. But we have a problem because in this country, I've seen a pattern where you have a specific person who is persecuted. People identify with that specific person, such as the Zippo Pai in 2015 who said homosexuality was a sin. For example, Jacques de Vos, the doctor who was penalized for speaking up for an unborn baby, that got hundreds of thousands of social media views. But when you have something abstract and boring like a law that's going, people don't think it's really relevant to them. So I'm going to ask you as creative people to think of ways of making this relevant so that your listeners will be interested in this. Because they will wake up otherwise in a year's time when it's too late, when some real individual is penalized who is innocent for speaking up for their faith. So we want to either stop this bill or greatly narrow the definition of hate speech. Now, I'd also point to Liesel Pretorius, who's in the audience over there. You can also interview her, but I'm really encouraged by the work of Kingfisher FM, who put together, in my opinion, a really amazing advert in record time, and I'd like to just ask if this could be played as an example that you could consider doing something like this, or interview us, or have a debate. In fact, you even invite the opposing side. I'll give their contact details to have a debate on the radio, and that would be really wonderful. So if we could play that.
This is about you. Yes, you. It's Freedom Day. However you value your faith and freedom of expression, you have a final opportunity to make your voice heard regarding the proposed hate speech bill. This bill suggests criminalizing expressions it deems as hate speech, suggesting jail sentences of up to 8 years for first offenders. This will severely affect us as Christians. The deadline for comment is as soon as midday on Friday, the 12th of May 2023. So even if you have signed it before, you need to sign it again. Do something now. Go to Kingfisher FM Facebook page and click on the Freedom of Religion link. Sign the petition and garner the support of at least 5 friends and family members to do the same. Share the link on your social media. Let's do our part, one signature at a time.
Isn't that brilliant? Don't you think that was excellently put together? Okay, so the only thing that's changed there is the good news. We've had an extension of 10 days, so that's the 22nd instead of the 12th. But now we must use that extra time, and we've now got 3 weeks to wake people up to this and speak out, and that will help us if we challenge it in the Constitutional Court, which will happen because then the court will realize this is a controversial thing that people think is important. Thanks.